All right, well, so happy to see you here at the tape group, the World Work tape group. So I'm happy to see you, happy that you're here, that you made it. And starting a bit on the early side of 7 for me, but it's still okay. So welcome. So today we continue with the World Work and with using the book a little bit more today in looking at righteous judgment. And well, we start all over again. Here we are. We start all over. Here's our world work. Well, what happened to the world? How's the world looking today? How is everything looking? What is going on in the world, in my world? And what is going on? So when I say we start all over again, it's like, well, let's look at this in a perspective that we actually can see something. And that is a nice, invitation, at least, challenge, absolutely. So anything that I'm perceiving in this world is temporal. And we know about temporalness in general. It's like temporalness, that's temporal. So it's not reality, because reality is infinite. And so conceptually we get that, and that's not so difficult. But now the practicality of it in our spiritual practice, it's like none of this is real. What is judgment then? What is righteous judgment? And how would you be able to perform that or do that? Now these are questions that are coming up today. And what does righteous judgment have to do with me finding myself in a world where so much is happening that I disapprove of and that I don't know what to do with, and that makes me absolutely uncomfortable and puts me in all corners of at least my room and possibly the whole universe. Now, what is that? How do we deal with that in our spiritual practice? What does Joel say about that? And so it's like, there's a lot of work to do, of course, to bring everything back to what is real, what is temptation. And last week we talked about two-ness. It's like, where am I tempted to in two-ness? Thinking that there are two instead of one, thinking that there's an outer world that is disconnected from me, or a brother that is disconnected from me. But who actually am I meeting continuously? And is that one able to, say, dominate over me or decide for me? And all this, it's like everything that is occurring is in fact for healing at this point in our development. Everything that's occurring is for healing, for recognizing what is truly happening, what is actually behind all of this. And then everything starts to settle down in an overview that is totally comforting. Like if we use the example of Jesus as our great inspirator, you could say, he inspires continuously with recognizing, totally recognizing that whatever is occurring is for the glory of God. Not for any other reason. It's for the glory of God. Otherwise it would have no reason to even happen. So that's the same with occurrences, situations, persons, relationships, whatever comes up. That is the same for us to recognize that. So it's coming up for healing. It's not coming up to literally like confirm the problems that you have, or not at all. No, this is coming up for healing. You could say, to recognize the glory of God, that you don't be distracted or tempted to think it has a different purpose, what is occurring. Now this brings you back to your core, to your basics, and this brings you back to Oh, wait a minute, yeah, wait a minute. I'm here in a spiritual practice, and I have this one sentence that keeps coming back to me, which is like, I and my Father are one. Like, that is happening within me. The kingdom of God is within me. There's nothing else going on. This is my reality. This is what I am. This is my inspiration on a moment-by-moment basis. In fact, nothing can take that away from me, because it is inherent in how I was created and how I'm being born in every new moment. So that is very powerful to keep that close when you see that there are situations or persons that seem to take that away from you. It's like, that's impossible. So anything that's occurring is for you to discover the glory of God, living by grace. Like, yes, this grace is what I want to receive. Yes, this light is what I want to receive. I want to say, receive this, but how do we get to that? How is the practice of that? Now, this is something that Joel will share with us. At least we use the words of Joel. We're reciting it. We're using the words of Joel in the meditation to actually see, oh yeah, this is how that goes. Oh yes. Oh, I want to stay with that for a moment. That's why you can call this a contemplation, what we're doing. So we listen to this recital, and then it's only maybe a minute or so, but we keep that really close to ourselves. Then we will be quiet for 5 minutes. And I do a bit longer time, because it is, yeah, we can do that. There's no problem. It's great to really deeply dive into letting that completely affect you. Like, what is actually being said? I want to discover what it is. Now I have 5 minutes to let that occur. I keep my focus right here. I'm not going to wander away in my thoughts. I'm not going to be distracted or engage in any kind of distraction. I'm staying right here. Like, literally, I'm drawing my circle. To practice this, I do it for 5 minutes. I draw my circle. Nothing can take me from this place of attention. And then we recite again. And then there's another 5 minutes in which we can practice this. Draw your circle. Nothing can take you away from that. You want to be completely affected by what you hear. Joel was sharing this with you because he wants to save you from the pain, from the sense of separation, from the sense of humanness and limitation, from any kind of disaster that you can bring to mind. And all of those things, he wants to save you from that. And that's why we use these words. So now, say like the medicine for today, of the healing target, if you want, like we use this 2 times 5 minutes in silence, letting it come to us and affect us. And that has an incredible impact if you allow that to be total, if you allow that to be for you. So this is my, say, introduction to the meditation that I'm going to share with you. No more power is given to the things or thoughts of the outer world. At some period in our study of meditation, the light dawns, and whereas before we knew the truth intellectually, now we feel it, now we see it, and now we live it. It is a great miracle when we can look out at all the people in the world, those close to us, and as well those far away from us, and realize that we can tabernacle together, be friends, and can live in the same house, but always, under all circumstances and conditions, I and my Father are one. There is that sense of oneness, that circle of joy and of sharing, and yet with a separateness and a lack of dependence.
À quelques périodes de notre étude ou méditation, la lumière apparaît. Et tandis qu'auparavant nous connaissions la vérité intellectuellement, maintenant nous la ressentons. Maintenant nous la voyons et maintenant nous la vivons. Aussi bien que ceux qui sont éloignés, en réalisant que nous pouvons demeurer ensemble saintement, être amis, et que nous pouvons vivre dans la même maison, mais toujours que dans toutes circonstances et conditions. D'unicité, ce cercle de joie et de partage, et pourtant il y a avec elle un état de séparation et une absence de dépendance.
All right, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much. So this is our meeting place. Huh? This is where we actually meet together. And Joel is talking about light and about illumination. Now, to bring that back, to bring that into proportion, you could say that the part that illumination is not like, okay, you step into illumination, then everything is different. Now it is like you are having experiences of light, and light you can see as moments of communication, of a recognition with what you're reading, with who you are, with you feel that something is going on. It's like there's a light of communication, because the communication is the most natural thing for you. In fact, if you let go of your ideas about yourself, that is what is there. It is a light communication. You recognize your oneness, and this can be with your brother, with God, of course. So in fact, it always starts with that. You recognize it. Instead of understanding, it becomes a recognition. And this is crucial. So light experiences are really important for you in this stage of development, you could say, in this stage of transformation. And you can, in fact, by relaxing, by inviting it, by asking for it, it can come to you. And sometimes just by listening to some music or expressing yourself with expressions of truth, for instance, I and my Father are one, or who knows what you're going to say, but something that has a real recognition for you. Now you start to bring that out. Say that in your room, for instance. It doesn't necessarily need to be to anyone, but just to in fact come into, this is the moment that you share with your Creator. And you will have a recognition with that. It is in fact that simple. So it's like you ask, you invite it in, and you express yourself. You can, this is one of the ways, but you can do that. Or you relax sufficiently that your defense against, against truth, or against who you think you are, is going to the background, you could say. So in fact, you trust the whole process enough to step back and allow this light to come to you. Now you can use that, of course, in all kinds of situations. But the most fundamental idea why I'm sharing this is like You recognize that it starts with you, that it has to come from within you. That's the starting point. That's where all the experiences that you have are. It's like whether that's not light, but for instance, what you call pain or what you call problems, concerns, all of this, it's still an experience of you. You have put labels on it, huh? You give it names. And that's why you have more problems with a certain word than with other words. But in fact, it's the same. If you would let go of these definitions, of these labels, and just enter into not knowing what to do with it or how to look at it, and talking about judgment, you step back and allow it to be shown to you what it actually is. By just not going out of the way of it, but in fact allowing yourself to experience it fully. Now this is really crucial, basic spiritual healing, you could say, because it starts always with your experience. It doesn't start with a book. It doesn't start with beautiful ideas. No, it starts with your experience. What am I experiencing right now? Now, if you, for instance, bringing the idea of judgment in, if I see a situation where I think like, oh my God, that's unbelievable that that's happening, and now I'm really shocked by this, or whatever it does with you. See, now something happened. So what are you experiencing? You, in fact, are experiencing a conflict. You experience maybe rage, maybe anger. It's like you experience something that's, to you, is disturbing your inner peace. Now, this is good to recognize. Not that, everything is allowed to be there. So you don't need to judge it for what it is, but you're starting to feel what it is. And that's already totally different. You allow it, in fact, to come to you and feel what you feel. And you don't have to act out, like taking it in, coming to a conclusion and then attack back or something. Like that's an Old Testament. That's an Old Testament covenant, like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Like, no, that's not necessary. So here it is. You let it come in. You allow it to come to you. But now you're actually just feeling what's going on with you in receiving that. It's like, wow, that's a total disruption of my peace right now. It's like unbelievable. And if you do that and not directly respond, something occurs because you quiet down. And in fact, you're able to take another look at it. And then you can also let thoughts come up like, so where's this starting? Like, where's this starting? It starts in me. Apparently, I'm looking for that. I'm actually putting it out there. Now letting it come back to me, it disrupts me. But it started with me. It cannot come from anywhere else, since there is only one consciousness. And that's yours. To make it simple for you, we say like, it's your consciousness. That's where it starts. Now, this is not to put all the blame on you, but it's more like, if I recognize that it starts with me and how I perceive it, then I can change my mind. I can change my ideas about what is going on. Now here is a door, in fact, to judge righteous. Because, see, the judging righteous part is not a special ability that you develop as an advanced student or an advanced teacher or whatever. It's not that you suddenly know how to respond to everything and know what should happen and how it should look. This can be really like a confusion that you walk around with, but that's not true. So the righteous judgment is in fact an openness, is a vulnerability, is a receiving, recognizing all things for what they are. And that is looking long enough not to be distracted by perception, by taking perception for fact, instead of seeing it as a reflection of what you are thinking. So it's like I'm looking at it long enough to in fact completely connect with it and not put it away, not separate myself off of it. No, I include myself completely into it, and seeing that it, in fact, by doing so, it dissolves. It dissolves into, it's all welcome. It's all just as, say, temporal as anything that I see. So it has no reality. But beyond that is something that I can see. And I believe that I can see that. Like, it's my belief, in fact. It's my faith that I will be able to see that. Now, what happens when I recognize something as being a total part of me that I didn't recognize before? I'm like mesmerized by him. No, mesmerized is not a good word, but it's more like I'm surprised by it. I'm surprised by it because it actually is in relationship with me totally. It is part of me. It's like it's part of my experience instead of a separate idea. Now this is where the true judgment comes in. And I give an example with our Savior, Jesus. Jesus got baptized. We saw this the other day. It's like Jesus got baptized by John the Baptist, and as soon as he gets up out of the water, heavens open up. Heavens open up. A lot of light experience he is in. It's like there's so much light there that it looks like, and maybe it even was, a dove landing on the top of his head. And he heard a voice, this still small voice. Well, it wasn't that small, it was overwhelming. It was this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. Now there's one incredible example of righteous judgment. If I can receive my brother as that, no matter what ideas I held about it before, recognizing that I'm standing on holy ground, looking at him in a way that I've never seen him, suddenly I receive this incredible recognition of this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. I basically recognize myself in whoever I meet and wherever I find myself. Now this is the place where we have some world work to do, because we miss it all the time. And why do we miss it? Because we believe what we see and take it as a fact and say like, yeah, then I don't like that guy, or I whatever you differentiate. But for one thing, you will not take it as part of yourself, and this was the only requirement. So you take it as part of yourself, you include it in, and it helps you to look beyond the appearance and actually recognize the Son in whom God is well pleased, as your Savior, as that one that is you. In fact, you recognize yourself, is what I'm saying. Now Joel tells us this too, but in a different way. And before that, I want to share with you a little bit from Matthew 7. Do not judge. It says in its Sermon on the Mount. Do not judge. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure you meet, it shall be measured to you again. So in fact, just don't do it. Whatever you think you have to do in judging someone or some situation or some past idea, some future idea, do not judge. Do not judge. Why would you not judge? Because it will come back to you, not to anyone else. It will come back to you because literally you made it real. You think it needs your judgment. Now it comes back to you and you say like, well, I don't like that. I don't want that. Well, where did it start? You started the judgment. And then you say like, no, well, somebody else was judging me. That's where it started. It's like, well, who's that someone else? See, this is an all-inclusive, you can't get out of it setup. Who's perceiving it? Who's perceiving the other guy judging you? You are perceiving it. Who is judging you? You are judging yourself. So you can say like, you put out a guy, let him judge you, and then you bring it back in for yourself and say like, well, I don't want that. So like, no, it started with you. So judge not. If you don't judge, everything becomes so much easier. Now, how do you not judge? We saw this as a question before the meditation. How do you not judge? That seems to be an impossible thing, because as soon as you open your eyes, you start to judge. So it is this far, like perception, like the way perceiving what you do. Perceiving is what judgment is. It is immediate. You only see it because you already have judged it. So you see it in a certain way. What do you see? Your own idea, your own judgment on the situation. Otherwise you would not be able to see it. And this really works that way. You can experiment as much as you want with it. If you think, well, it needs a little extra research for myself, go ahead. You will find out. It's like, if I don't value it, if I don't judge it, it just disappears out of my sight. It just doesn't happen anymore. Now I use the examples of pink elephants. If I think like, well, pink elephants are really not pretty, then probably I'm going to see a lot of pink elephants today, and so on. So it's like your mind activates it, you see it everywhere. Suddenly the pink elephants are everywhere. I can't believe it. And only because of that, it's just a reflection of what you are thinking. Take one thought during the day, one judgment, take one judgment, and see how that comes back to you in the same day. It's unbelievable. So who put it there? You did. Now I take it back, I accept it. It's like, okay, it starts here. Any perception that I make real is me believing in what I see is a fact, and I can use it in fact against my brother because I've seen it. It's proof. For me it's proof and a reason to attack my brother. If I forgive, if I let go of that idea, it comes back to me in a way that suddenly I can see my brother, I can be open to him, I can be at peace with him, and that feels so different. That feels so great. So in other words, it starts with your experience. That's the most important part, and you can't fool yourself. You can fool anyone but yourself. Bring it on, Joel. Righteous judgment, beginning with yourself. That was the title, beginning with yourself. Sooner or later, you must be willing to put off this I that is fully of earthly error, resentments, injustices, inequalities, and declare within yourself. So let's stand here first. Sooner or later you must be willing to put off this I that is full of resentment, injustices, inequalities, and declare within yourself something. But we're going to read that in a second. But I just want to make sure that you got this. It begins with yourself. Sooner or later you must be willing to put off this I that thinks it knows, that thinks resentment is just, that injustices need to be corrected, that inequalities need to be corrected, that anything I see need to be corrected because I see it and I want in fact to save the world. So you have to be willing to put off this I. Up to that moment, in fact, nothing happens in your spiritual awakening. If you still walk around, say, enjoying resentments, injustices, and all this stuff, lies, shaming and blaming, nothing has happened so far. Except maybe that you become aware of it, that you're actually doing it, and starting not to like yourself about that too much. So In other words, your ideas become too painful to keep perpetuating them, to use them against your brother. So then, at that point, you will be ready to declare within yourself, I am ready to assume my true identity. I am ready to awaken to the light of my being, and I am willing to accept the Master's statement that I am to call no man on earth my Father, that I am to acknowledge divine sonship. For who? For myself. I only have to acknowledge divine sonship for myself. Until you do that for yourself, how can you love your neighbor as yourself? You haven't started to love yourself. And you do not love yourself until you acknowledge your true identity. So now here we get to the basic idea of world work. It's like, how can I love my neighbor as myself if I don't even love myself? That would be totally impossible. This is great. So Joel gives it to us here. It's like, see, this is what I meant in the beginning. It's like, Joel is going to give you something that is absolutely life-changing when you accept it, when you are willing to accept it, when you accept it, to start to demonstrate it, to start to actually use it. So first you hear it, then you accept it, then you start to demonstrate it. Now this is really important. No, stop judging. You feel resentment, bring it back to yourself. You feel anger, you feel this, you feel that. It's all great. It's all allowed to be there. Where does it start? With my ideas about anything that's occurring here. I'm not enjoying it. I'm handing this over. I need help here. I need help here. Now, because I want to come to the place where I can finally declare, in fact, my love for myself first, my love for my neighbor next, my love for God, all the way. So this is the world work that we're doing, bringing that to our own experience. Where does it start? Accepting this for myself. There's nobody else out there. There's no world to be saved. There's no brother to be forgiven. There's no one to attack. There's nothing going on in that sense. There's no world attacking me or, So it all starts with me. Am I willing to recognize the truth of who I am? Am I willing to come to know who I am? Am I having that as my first focus when I wake up in the morning and bringing myself back to that spot? Like, okay, here it starts. Today, I'm not going to judge by appearances. Today, I'm willing to let everything come to me in a different way, to help me to realize that it's like it all starts with me, that I'm accepting, in fact, the love of God first for myself, and see that that will change the whole world. I will never see the world in the same way when I do that. I never see my brother in the same way before I do that. I never see my body that way before I do that. Like, if I accept the love of God for myself, I will see everything different. My financial situation, my relationships, my body condition, my every little thing. Like, that's the place where it actually changes. That's the place where you recognize your true source instead of the superficial source of mesmerism that in fact isn't the source at all. It is a make-believe, it's a fantasy. Appearances are sense objects, not of God or truth. So this is one of the wisdoms of the infinite way. They're in the book. So I love these. All appearances are sense objects, not of God or truth. Another one, here's another wisdom. When living out from the center of being, you are untouched by the thoughts, opinions, laws, and theories of the world. Nothing acts upon you because you do not react to the world of appearances. See, that's your safety, you could say. Yeah, so this is great too. Here's one more. In the spiritual life, you place no labels on the world. You do not judge as to good or evil, sick or well, rich or poor, while appearances may show forth harmony or discord. By not judging, you merely know is, and let that which truly is define itself, show itself, manifest itself. You know, like this. So it saves you so much work. On the other hand, it's like it is already there. You don't have to make it. So you also don't have to, except for the fact that you don't have to make it, you also don't have to defend it. You don't have to attack it. So that saves you so much energy. You have no idea what's going on, but you allow it to fall into place as it will be given by you listening, by you stepping back out of like, I have no idea, but I'm trusting, like my faith is in that, is not in the I that I made up myself to be. So that's quite the lesson. It's a great lesson. So judging by appearances is something that we allow to be undone within us, and everything changes by that. And this is the main, you could say this is the main job that we have. Judge not by appearances. They're not facts, they're reflections. They're just reflecting your thoughts, nobody else's. And yes, it's insane. Yes, you can't believe they are coming from you. No, so this is like, if you accept that for yourself, who is there to blame? No one. Who is there to attack? No one. Who is, not even yourself either. It's like, I have to forgive myself 70 times 7 for what I'm thinking. Look at what I'm seeing. Look at what I actually make manifest here. And I do believe it's true. Like, I need help. That must be obvious. And the help is here. You step back. You don't have to defend it. You only have to allow it to happen, to be shown to you. That's all. It's like, that's how simple that is. No, take off your hands. No, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to manipulate, control, or anything like that. No. Allow a new vision to come to you. One that is all-inclusive. One that is in relationship with every aspect of creation. That is what is being asked, and that is what is yours already. So the only thing that you have to do is allow all the things that you do to be undone. That's in fact all. You don't have to judge. You don't have to trust your perception. You don't have to control your world. You don't have to do anything with your world except including it in, seeing it, not separating yourself off, not transcending it and of negating it in any kind of way. It's like, no, it's all part of my human frame of reference, and as long as I believe in that, it is in my way, in fact, for a glorious vision that is mine already, and that would make me incredibly happy if I could actually accept that for myself. When I accept that for myself, I extend it automatically to everyone, because there's no way that I can contain myself. I will have to give that away. So here's the practitioner, teacher, whatever you want to call it, in his next step of his spiritual development. He starts to give it away. And then really, like, every fence is gone. You can't stop it. And it, like, the flow of inspiration, the flow of God is literally flowing through you, and suddenly the Christ is living your life, but with total appreciation on your part that you don't have to struggle and defend yourself anymore and not have to judge anymore. So this is in fact what is given in just one part of the chapter. So that's what I always say, is like, if you really read it well, I might have missed even a lot too. It's like, but even when I go into this chapter, take out one paragraph and really stand still with it, all this comes up to share and to have the illustrations, have the inspirations that are given to make this like so incredible to receive it. So I love it. So thank you so much for your attention. We're going to listen to Joel, and the talk that came to me was "Yourself is Divine." Now, in this talk, Joel talks a bit about his traveling in the first part. So I will be skipping that a little bit, even though it was funny to hear that he visited Berlin too, and went out to the east side of Berlin at the time, seeing what socialism would do with the country. So he would bring that in too, as well. If you want to know what socialism is going to do, if you're still doubting if you should vote for socialism, come and take a look here. It might immediately become clear what you have to do. So that was kind of interesting to see that Joel say that. But anyway, so we're starting with the second part of second half hour of Joel's talk. I think we got time for that. Yeah, if we hurry a little bit. Okay, so continuing then with the video.
A part of you that is divine. You know that there's a part of you that is infinite and immortal and eternal. You know more than this. You know that you have an infinite capacity for good. And part of the warfare is because humanly you cannot live up to the measure of what you know yourself to be. But we all have that in common. We all have that in common. We all know how far short we fall of our divine self. But remember that the reason we fall short is the divine self is God. And we haven't yet attained that state where we are so consciously one with God that we can say, as the Master often did, "Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me, for I and the Father are one. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the bread, the meat, the wine, and the water. I am this." He spoke of that when he ascended to that realm where Jesus and Christ had become one. Sometimes in our meditations, sometimes when we are engaged in treatment work for others, we also attain something close to that actual experience of oneness, divine oneness, in which the human self has disappeared and all that is left is the divine self, that which is God. These periods are brief and do not come as often as we would like them. But the very fact that you know that your self is spiritual, that you know that your self is divine, the very fact that you know that you are infinite pure being is that which will enable you to give up this warfare with God, this battle with God, and release yourself and relax yourself into that divine self which you are, that divine self which constitutes your being, and then you can trust it. Now, as you are compelled to look on your own problems, or in these difficult days to look out at the problems of the world. Instead of asking yourself, where is God? And what is God doing about this? Instead of doubting that there is a God, or that peace and harmony could be restored, surrender yourself to the self of you and rest in it for its answer. Have you noticed this? Those of you who have ever asked anyone for metaphysical or spiritual help, have you ever noticed that you may have 100 friends and relatives who could not give you this help, yet here and there out in the world there is an individual. And if you have a cold or if you have a problem of any nature, some measure of harmony, and sometimes miraculous measures of harmony, are restored to you. And then you wonder, why can't 1,000 others do this? Why couldn't my relatives do this? My closest friends do this? And the answer always is, only those can bring spiritual harmony to your experience who have attained a measure of spiritual consciousness. In other words, it is the attained consciousness of an individual. It is the demonstrable spiritual consciousness of an individual that can bring spiritual peace and harmony where there has been discord and inharmony. Again, this points to the fact that as the Joel nature of us yields to the divine nature, it is the degree of that divine nature which Joel attains that becomes the spiritual light. And it isn't Joel, it's Mary, Bill, whoever you may be, or the world may be, because God is truly no respecter of persons. God is yourself. God is the divinity of your being, and it is not anywhere where you have to go for it, search for it, purchase it. It is within yourself, awaiting your recognition and the attainment of the realization of its presence. Now, when you know this, you know also that this divine self, which was the self of Jesus, of John, of Moses, of Buddha, this divine self is the divine self of you which you are recognizing when, in those moments, you do recognize that there is a part of you which is spiritual and perfect. There is a part of you which is divine. There is a part of you that is infinite in goodness. It makes no difference what you may humanly be doing today or yesterday or tomorrow. There is still that recognition that there is this divinity of you, this perfect you, this immortal and eternal you, this you that could say to the rocks, pour forth water, and it would be so. It could say to the storm, peace, be still, and it would be so. The more you contemplate this perfect self of you, this real self of you, this divinity of you, the closer you bring yourself into at-one-ment with it. The more you bring yourself into intimate relationship with it, until you come, in a measure of course, to the place where the Master said, I can of my own self do nothing, but the Father within me doeth the works. Or Paul could say, I live, yet not I. Christ liveth my life. In other words, you come to that place of renunciation, of surrender, where you know right well now that that which is the external, the human of you, is becoming less and less and less, and that which is the divinity of you is becoming more and more and more. Only because there are moments in which you recognize how really great you are, only because there are moments in which you recognize how really sweet and real and true and perfect you are, only because of that can you have any hope at all for release from the problems of this world. Because it is that part of you which can give you your freedom. It is that part of you which becomes the presence that goes before you to make the crooked places straight. It is that part of you which others recognize as your real nature. As it comes into the ascendancy, when you meet with the people of this world, they do not see your human nature to the extent that they formerly did. They become more and more aware of this divine nature that is within you. Now, you come to what is one of the most important steps on your entire spiritual path. You will learn now why you have been battling with God. You will learn that although you have stated over and over and over that the kingdom of God is within you, that you've really been fighting with the concept of a God up in the sky. You didn't know that that much orthodoxy was left in you. But now you discover that you were not resenting God or fighting God. You were fighting the concept of God that you have been entertaining all your life. And the reason this God doesn't do things is there is no such God. Now you come into the awareness why the kingdom of God is within me, not outside, and it must be released from within me. If I want peace on my earth, peace must flow out from my heart. If I want harmony, justice, equality, I can't any longer look to a God for it. I must express it. Now you will learn that the whole secret of your discords and inharmonies has been the false concept of God that you have been entertaining, even while believing that you had made the transition to a metaphysical or spiritual basis of life. You still were expecting something of God that the world is expecting. A great deal of the world is in church today praying to that non-existent God for intercession in something that can't happen. It just cannot be. If there is to be peace on earth, it must flow out from us. And how? First of all, we are going to recognize that whatever peace is to be on earth must flow out from within us to the earth. Next, we must know that that peace can only flow in proportion to our recognition of the nature of God. Do you believe that God is a great power that can do something to other powers? Then you're praying amiss. You cannot help bring peace on earth. You will only bring peace on earth in proportion as you can look upon the evils of this world and say, thank you, Father, this is a mirage. This is not power. Whether that evil appears as a man, an ideology, a disease, a sin, still, you in your inner self, when communing with yourself, must realize, just think, the kingdom of all power is within me, and it is all good. There is no power of evil in the divinity within me, nor within any individual on the face of the globe, for God is infinite and God is love. The evil that we have been fighting and that we have been desiring God to remove is non-existent. The evil exists only as a worldly concept in our thoughts. Once you begin to perceive the nature of God within you, you will soon see that there is no evil in you, and you will soon see that the evil beliefs that have governed you or controlled you are not power. They disappear just as darkness disappears when light is introduced. You know, we have had this brought to our attention before, that there is no such thing as darkness. There is no entity called darkness. When light comes, it doesn't move darkness out of the room, because there was no darkness in the room. There is no such thing as an entity called darkness, something that could be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, or analyzed under the glass. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as darkness. And you see that Scripture was able to reveal this many, many centuries ago, when it gave us this, that to God, light and darkness are the same. Think of this. To God, light and darkness are the same. There are no pairs of opposites. Jesus must have perceived this when he said to the woman taken in adultery, "Neither do I condemn thee," and to the thief on the cross, "I will take you with me into paradise this night." Why? To God, sin and purity are the same thing. They are illusions. There is no one good. No one. Why callest thou me good? There is no me good. Then why callest thou me evil? There is no evil. That which we have considered to be good and that which we have considered to be evil are both alike to God. They're non-existent. That is why they can be metaphysically and spiritually healed, because they have no reality. They do not require probing. They do not require medication. They do not require surgery, because they exist only as images of thought. They exist only as a part of the illusion that has come upon us since we accepted the power of good and of evil. In the Garden of Eden, there was no good and there was no evil, but the acceptance of good and evil destroyed the Garden of Eden. It removes us, too, from our harmony. But you can only learn in your meditation, you can only learn in your communion with God that evil is not real. And then watch it evaporate, dissolve, disappear from your experience, and after a while, there will not even be the memory of it. You see, when we make the acknowledgement that in my humanhood, I'm certainly not all that I should be, because I'm nowhere near approaching what I am in my spiritual nature. That's quite enough of a confession to make about the past. We can then leave the past and begin to commune with this Father that is within us, this Spirit that is within us, and by relaxing, and I mean relaxing desire, the desire to receive anything, the desire for anything, surrender these. You want nothing of God. To know Him aright is life eternal. So the most we can hope for or want is to know the nature of God. And this we can learn in our meditation. This we can learn within ourselves, because God quickly reveals it to us when there is no barrier to receptivity. And the barrier to receptivity is desire. The barrier to the receptivity of God, to communion with God, is entering a meditation with a desire. The only way that I can think of to illustrate this is the example of our sun and sunshine. We may go out into the sunshine to enjoy its warmth and its light, and we place our gardens where the sunshine will reach it. But we do not pray to the sun to come to our garden, and we do not pray to the sun to raise our crops. We do not ask the sun for warmth or light. We merely go out into it and accept it because it's available. It's universal. But God is much more so. For God is spirit, and God fills all space, so that we do not even have to go outdoors to find ourselves in God, although many people do find it easier when communing with nature to find their way right back through nature to God. But God is equally everywhere present, and the moment we can surrender that desire to receive of God, the moment we can surrender the wish to have God do something, you will find that you will relax into God and very shortly receive God's grace, whether in the form of messages or whether in the form of guidance or in the form of greater harmony in our affairs, but it comes. In all the years of this work, nothing has impressed upon itself upon me to the extent that this has, that when I can go within, completely free of desire, even the desire to see someone healed, even the desire to see someone supplied, just go within to receive that glow of the Spirit, that light of illumination, that feeling of warmth, of oneness, then I find it literally true that all things are added. Whether in my experience or those who are seeking help, the answer comes. But the answer comes in direct proportion to the ability to surrender the will, the desire. Think. God is yourself. And in those moments when you really are recognizing how wonderful you are in your real nature, you know those moments when you say, nobody understands me? That's a real moment too. That's a real moment, and it's really true that no one understands us, because no one knows how really divine I am. And a lot of the times I don't know it myself. But when I do, I have my goal. And I know that only in proportion as I can bring myself into oneness with the divinity, the perfection that I already am, and surrender human desires, surrender human fears. Don't even allow yourself to speculate on what may happen tomorrow, as if it would make any difference. Thank heaven that Paul was able to reveal to us that neither life nor death can separate us from the love of God. Neither life nor death. And that experience of crossing over that comes to everyone eventually really makes no difference that it came to Jesus at 35 years of age. And the disciples, all of them probably before they were 50. It really makes no difference what the date is that we make that crossing, as long as we cross in the absolute conviction of our spiritual identity and of the fact that that which is the perfect of us is that which survives. Neither life nor death can separate us from the love of God or the life of God or the Spirit of God. And so where we make our home temporarily is not of too much importance. The vision that I would share with you today, which is the vision that I am seeing up here, give greater recognition to your perfect self and recognize that it is yourself. It is not some far-off God. It is not some being other than yourself. This divine, this perfect, this spiritual, which you feel and which sometimes you see and recognize within you, this is really you. And what you see in the mirror is only a human mind's distortion of that. And even the human conduct that we show to each other is a distortion of the really perfect that we are. And in the degree that we recognize this perfect self as our true being, in that degree do we mold ourselves into the image and likeness of it, into the pattern shown thee on the mount. Don't look out and up to a God to solve the problems of this world. Look to the center of your being, and then let love flow out. Love in the form of forgiveness. Forgiveness to all those who offend you, whether personally or nationally or internationally, and above all things, love in the form of praying for your enemies. The Master made it so clear that it profiteth you nothing to pray for your friends. If you would be children of God, and this means if you would be heirs of God and joint heirs to peace on earth, pray for your enemies. Pray for them. Pray that the spiritual light reveal itself in them. Pray that their sins be forgiven them and that they awaken in the true image that is within them. In teaching prayer, we were shown that if you go to the altar to pray, and there remember that any man has aught against thee, to get up, go first and make peace with your brother, and then return to the altar. This is really a pattern for prayer. Don't think for a moment that if you go into prayer, communion, meditation, and there are harboring enmity, that your prayer ever reaches the throne of heaven, even though the throne of heaven is right within you. First, make peace. In other words, pray. Pray for your enemy, forgive your enemy, get at peace with everyone in this world, and you will find yourself at peace with God. Then the Spirit of God can flow out through you to this world. While we are at home, I would like to continue these Sunday mornings with you for as long as you would like to have them. When you want to rest, just indicate it, and I'll take the hint. Otherwise, we are going to be here each Sunday morning, with the exception of September 10th, when we will go to Maui. But otherwise, We'll be here for your joy and mine Sunday morning. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. So, I'll play some music and thank you for your presence. Have a lovely rest of your day and see you soon. Thank you so much.